So you started looking at some motorcycle ads and you ended up looking at moto vlogs. And now you're at the point where you want to get a bike, but the first step is getting your motorcycle license, unless you're an absolute degenerate and ride dirty. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the easiest and safest steps you can take to get your motorcycle endorsement. Now, this is going to be specific to the United States, where we go full bore. Absolutely no restrictions on the size of bike that you get after you have your endorsement, exactly how God intended. So all my folks that are watching outside the United States, maybe just look at this and see how it compares to yours. I'd be curious to know what it looks like in other European countries or Asian countries, wherever it might be. It'd be interesting to know. So comment in the section below what the requirements are. I'm going to tell you guys specific to California in the United States what this is going to look like, and again, the safest way to go about this. Now, I promise I'm going to get to the requirements right after this, but the first thing we want to do is really just scope out, because if you have zero riding experience whatsoever, I'm not talking about the dirt bike people who know how to ride, but they just never have taken it to the street. I'm talking about people with zero experience and they're just excited from videos or friends that maybe have motorcycles or stuff that they've seen online. You really gotta think if you want to make the investment, first off, and secondly, take the risk of getting a motorcycle. Now, I made a video actually covering just how dangerous motorcycles are, basically showing the fatal accidents that happen in California and the United States at large. And it's not to freak you out, but quite literally every time I hop on my bike, I'm always thinking about who is trying to kill me today. And that morbid sense of reality that you really have to embrace and just accept is something that's not for everyone. And it's something that I think you have to embrace to really understand the gravity of what you're doing by not being in a car and being on a two-wheel bike. So on that really uplifting note, let's get into it. This is going to be different depending on your age group. So the DMV in the state of California, and depending on whatever state you're in, just look at your local guidance and resources. They actually give you a really clear table on 3 different age groups that they define. One of them being 15 and a half, that age is crazy, to 17, 18 to 20, and 21 and over. So you can be a minor and get a motorcycle endorsement, but there's more caveats and restrictions to that. Same thing with 18 to 20. There's a little bit less restrictions, but there still are a couple of caveats. And 21 and over is going to be the most flexible options for you to get licensed. But I'm going to tell you how I got mine and how I would recommend going about it, and how the majority of people probably go about this in the first place. Unless this is the first motorcycle related video that you've been watching to get into bikes, you've probably heard of an MSF course. And let me explain what they are to all the very new people out there. Now, an MSF course is a third party running a motorcycle riding course that is going to be the certification process for you to get your motorcycle license. Now, depending on your age group, you don't technically have to go through the MSF course. In cases where you're over 21, you could technically show up and bring your own bike to the DMV, but then you'll be subject to having to do a test and also provide your own bike. So if you're new to riding, here's why I highly recommend choosing an MSF course local to you. So the MSF course, you're not just showing up and taking a test. It's going to be a really comprehensive 3-day process, or at least that's what it was for my course. You have an in-class day where you go over all the sort of written parts of the riding aspects of what you're going to be covering in the test. And then you're going to have 2 days behind the bars. You're going to have to provide your helmet, your gloves. That's what I'll come prepared with. They may have some gear depending on which one you go to, but it's going to cost you about $400. And most of the time, if you're under 21, they give you a little bit of a discount, which is pretty cool. Now, while the written part and the class night session is cool and all, it was actually really interesting to see behind the bars for all the people who have never even touched a street bike before. There was about 7 people in probably a class of 25 to 30 that didn't even know how to function a motorcycle, couldn't even tell you where the clutch was on the bike, which honestly kind of scared me at first. But at the end of the course, no one failed their test, everyone got their certification, and it goes to show that if you just start with small baby steps, have the right training process, you can really get confident on these bikes real quick. But by no means are you going to be some amazing rider after, but they cover so many great topics that are necessary to address when you're going to ride on the street. And that's a huge part why so many people do recommend paying the $400 and going about it the right way. So for all my new riders who are tense and anxious about going to the MSF course, don't be, because you can go with a buddy. You can make it really just a fun thing for you and a friend to do. And again, there are brand new people going to this who have never even touched a bike, who couldn't even tell you where the clutch was on the bike, and they're able to pass after this 3-day course. So rest assured, it's not as intimidating as you think. The people who do these more often than not do it on the side because they absolutely love the sport of riding and they want to get more people out there on the road on 2 wheels. So they're here to help. It's not a bunch of tough guys out there trying to make you feel bad about stalling a bike out. They really are, for the most part, super encouraging people who just want to make sure that you're safe on the road. So what now? You have your certificate from the MSF course. Congrats. Now, if you are over 21 in California, you can take that to the DMV and then you will get your provisional license, where there's a 6-month restrictive period where you can't have a passenger, you can't ride at certain times of the night. Honestly, it's very fair rules. Getting out there on the road is really what matters, and that's what you're allowed to do. So for all my peeps who are still minors, the 15.5 to 17.5 year age range, you're still gonna have to take 2 written tests. One of them being the Class C one. For those that don't know what that is, that's to operate a standard truck or car vehicle. And then you will also have to take the DMV's version of the written test. So even though you take a written test when you get your MSF certification, you still have to take another written test. But if you're able to pass the MSF one, honestly, I think that one is even more difficult than the DMV one. For all the folks who are 18 years or older, but not 21 just yet, in that little awkward threshold, if you will, you're just gonna have to make sure that you take the written test. For some reason, they don't specify that you need to have your Class C driver's license, which is kind of odd, to be totally honest. But you will only have to be taking the written test for the bike once again, and that's pretty much the only caveats based on age. Another really cool thing about getting the MSF course done and completed is that that certificate is actually going to help your insurance rates when you insure whatever bike that you're going to have in the future. If you don't feel comfortable after only riding 3 days with an instructor, they actually have a lot of intermediate courses where you can do a bit more of extensive training, which is always recommended. To be totally honest, I haven't done it myself. I think that would be cool to make content on that and get more training. I by no means think that I'm going to be above doing an intermediate course from the MSF course. I just haven't really gotten around to it. But if you feel uncomfortable, get more training and just go about it very slow. There's obviously no timer to get on a bike. You really just have to go at your own pace and really feel out how comfortable you feel on the bike before pulling the trigger on one and making that huge commitment. So with that, guys, that is going to be sort of the closing statement here for getting your M1 license if you're a new rider. Again, you can go about this a much more straightforward way, especially if you're over the age of 21 here in the state of California. But the MSF course, really, if you look on any forum or any other content out there, I would say that 90% of people endorse going to one of those classes and just paying the money and time to get that overall training done. One thing I want to ask is, for all the people who are brand new to riding and went through the exact process that I'm referring to, please comment your experience for other riders out there. I think it'd be good to have a forum of people speaking to this whole process and being completely net new riders, just to share their experience and any of the pitfalls that they might have ran into throughout the process. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching the video. Please feel free to give me any sort of feedback for content in the future, and I will catch you guys in the next video.